Teachers, we are in Genesis chapter number 12 and 13, and we are in the session number 10 of our first part of the study of Genesis and Explore the Bible in the Explore the Bible curriculum for Sunday school. I hope that you're having a great week and that you had a great Sunday and that you're going to just begin jumping into this passage and letting it soak into you and impact you for the week. You know, I think it's an interesting thing that our God that we have makes promises to us. Not every promise in the Bible is a promise for you. There's that old hymn, "Every promise in the book is mine," and while I love the sentiment of, you know, if God makes me a promise, I can trust Him, and that's really what that song's trying to say. Technically speaking, not every promise in the book, not every promise in the Bible is for us. There's promises made to Israel, promises made to specific people that aren't for everybody, but there are promises in the Bible that are for us, and we can learn a lot from about our lives and about how God relates to us based on how He related to people in the Bible and made promises to them. A lot of times these promises were called covenants, and today we see the beginnings of an Abrahamic covenant. God's dealing with Abraham, and He's making promises to him. And so you see Abraham respond to God's promises. You also see another figure, Abraham's nephew Lot, and what he did. God didn't specifically make promises to him, but the promises that He made to Abraham impacted Lot. Lot went with Abraham to a promised land, and we'll see that today. So there we see how these people respond to God, this promise-making God, in today's text, and it will set us up for a great lesson, a great application as to how we can respond to God ourselves. So there are three ways that we can respond to our promise-making God. The first way we see is moving for God, and we see that as obedience. Genesis 12, 1 through 5 says this: "Now the Lord had said unto Abraham, Get thee out of thy country, from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee." Now this is an interesting thing to think about. I like trying to put things into the way that people would think about them if they happen to them today. Imagine having a vision from God that says you need to leave your hometown, get in the car, pack everything up, and leave. And once you get in the car ready to go, I'll show you where you're supposed to go. Imagine having that conversation with your wife, with your kids, with your friends, with your employer. And certainly Abraham didn't have all of those things, but he had certainly all the family part of that. And he literally says, get away from your kindred, your extended family, get out of your father's home and go. And then he makes this promise: "And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed." So God makes this covenant along with this request, or this command of faith. Hey, get up and go, and I'm going to show you a land. He gives them a promise and says, I want you to know that you're going to have a great nation come out of you. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make your name great. I think that's interesting. The curriculum said something about that's exactly what the Tower of Babel people wanted. If you remember our lesson last week, they said they wanted to have they were wanting to make a name for themselves. And here God comes to Abraham and says, I'm going to make your name great. And of course, we're still talking about him today. So, and then it says, I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Certainly, all the families of the earth were blessed in a near-term way, because Abraham had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob, Jacob had Joseph, and Joseph was used as a type of Christ to bring salvation to the then known world from death, from starvation. He was used in that incredible way. But obviously there's a future fulfillment, and also in the person of Jesus Christ. God chose that all the nations, all the families of the earth, all the nations of the earth, the ethnos, as the Greek New Testament term, all of those people would be blessed. Every nation, tribe, and tongue would be blessed through Abraham in the person of Jesus Christ. And so there's the promise that God chose Father Abraham to create a nation, and he tells him, and he gives him a land. He gives him a land and a people. So how does Abraham respond to such wonderful, impactful, influential, faith-demanding news? Because remember, he doesn't have a kid. He hasn't seen this land. He doesn't know all the things we know about Joseph and a nation and Jesus, and he doesn't understand all of that the way we do. So how does he respond? Well, he obeys. There's a moving for God. God says, do this. I want you to do this, and I'm doing this for you, and now I want you something from you. You need to do something for me. And we see that in verse 4. So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot was with him. There's that second person that is important to today's text and today's story. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Abraham took Sarah his wife, Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and their souls, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came. And so you have here Abraham responding to God's promise in faith. He believed God, and he moved toward where God was sending him. What's the application for us? When God tells us something, you're like, well, I haven't got a vision from God. Well, you've got revelation from God, and you have it right here in his word. And it's in black and white for us. And it's not a matter of prophecy. It's what I'm going to do. There's a bunch that he has done. There is some future things that are going to happen. But God has some things that he's done in the past, and we can live knowing that he's a promise-keeping God and move in faith ourselves in obedience to his word. And so how do we respond to a promise-making God? Number one, we move for him. We obey him. When he says go, we go. Number two, another response we could have, and it's not a good response, is moving away from God. Moving away from God. And I put the word here, drift. There's definitely a drift, and you see that here in this particular text. In Genesis 13, we're going to move a chapter ahead to verse 11 through 13, and the person at the middle of this particular point and in this text is Lot. It says in verse 11, then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan. Now, if you were to read the few verses before, and maybe I suggest you do that during the lesson, Lot's servants, Lot's people, Lot's part of the clan, starts to have problems with Abraham's part of the clan, and so it came to be that Abraham said, you know what, we need to kind of separate, but I'm not gonna, obviously then you go, well, which way are you gonna go? Oh, of course you're gonna go the way that there's all the water and all the good stuff, and you're leaving me the worst part. That's what Lot could have said. So Abraham said, you know what? It's kind of like, did you ever have like dessert and you're cut and you have to split the dessert for your kids, and so somebody has to cut the cake. So what a lot of times parents will do, I remember my parents did this, whoever got to cut it, the other person got to choose. And that was choose which piece of the cake or which piece of the cookie or whatever you're going to get. And that kind of helps to ensure that there's fairness in it, because the person cutting can't make one giant piece and one small piece, and then he wants to get it to be about as fair as possible so that they both get the most they possibly can in that circumstance. That's kind of what happens here. Hey, choose which way you're going to go. And so Lot chose the well-watered plains. It says the all the plain of Jordan. He goes to the side where there's the river, and so that was what happened. So Lot chose him. All the plain of Jordan, journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Sodom is notorious even in our day. We have laws that are even called laws about sodomy. It's very sexual. It's where we get language in and around homosexuality. This is a dangerous, uh, perverse place, as you will see in the coming weeks as we study this particular passage and going forward in Genesis. And so, but you see Lot, and every time you see Lot mentioned from here on out, you see him getting closer and closer and closer, drifting towards Sodom. And as you drift towards Sodom, you drift away from God, the promise making God. So you see kind of a divergence here. You see Abraham continuing to believe God, continuing to live on God's promises, and you see Lot um, pitching his tent towards Sodom. Now, pitching his tent towards Sodom. You in this particular um, application of this point, the first thing Lot does is not to go into the city. He just, when he sets up his tent, he sets up his tent to look towards the city. And it's amazing how that where our eyes go, our souls tend to go, our bodies tend to go. Like what you gaze on is what informs your thinking, and what informs your thinking informs your beliefs, and what informs your beliefs informs your behavior. And so you see that drift that happens. And so we need to be careful about what we set our eyes on. And as we respond to a promise making God, by turning to God, we're turning from something else. It's an important point. Number 3, you see another way we can respond is moving towards God. You can obey God. There's a moving for God. Then there's a moving away from God, and there's a moving toward God. And we see that characterized as faith. And we'll see that in verses 14 through 18. This is God now speaking again to Abraham, of course, a chapter later from what we were before. Verse 14, and the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift now thine eyes, and look toward the place where thou art, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. It's kind of interesting. It's almost like we were just told that Lot set his gaze towards Sodom, and God says to Abram, I keep calling him Abraham, but at this one he's Abram. Same guy, different. God changes his name. But he says, I want you to look on my promise. I want you to remember what I've committed to you. He says again, this land which thou seest, I will get to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever, and I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth. What does he mean by that? He doesn't mean that he's going to make them disintegrated into dust. He's saying, can you count the dust? Can you count the sand, the dirt? You can't do that. Take salt and pour it out on your table. Can you count how many grains of salt there? I mean, it's just an impossible task. And he says, that's how many descendants you're going to have. So that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it to thee. Then Abraham removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. So you have here a gazing towards the promises of God, a faith in God, and moving toward what God had promised, and then doing that towards God himself. And then you see him build an altar, a place of worship for God and for all he has done. And so, of course, the application is we have a choice. We have a choice about whether or not we're going to obey God. We have a choice about whether or not we're going to set our gaze towards things that are temporary and evil. And man, we have a challenge with that. We used to just have TVs in our home. Now we got TVs and laptops and televisions in our pocket and on tablets. We've got ways to gaze at good and bad, and we have to be careful about how we do that. And God says, hey, I want you to remember me. I want you to move for me. I want you to obey me. I want you to think about the promises that I'm making available to you. And again, I would say that he doesn't have to promise. God didn't have to promise us. He didn't have to give us anything. What we deserved is death. What we deserved is hell. But God makes promises to us. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Like, these are precious, precious promises. You're sealed unto the day of redemption by the Holy Spirit. I mean, God has done some amazing things for us. And so we need to trust in, to put our faith in our promise making God. And we should remember him in the way that we live our lives. And we should set our eyes, like the psalmist said, to the hills from whence cometh my help. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. So I hope this helps you as you think through how you could apply this to your class and in your lesson. May it be an encouragement to you personally to pay attention to where your gaze is, and then point your class to our promise making God. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.